In a previous video about the wives of Henry VIII, we've reached his third wife, Jane Seymour. How Henry VIII grieved deeply over the death of his beloved wife. Unlike his usual self, 3 years passed, and Henry VIII was still immersed in sorrow, closing his heart to other women. Until his advisors began advising him to seek a new wife for the sake of the Tudor dynasty's continuity and the kingdom's political alliances. In the effort to find a new wife, Henry received political marriage proposals from various European countries. One of the offers he accepted was the proposal to marry Anne of Cleves, a German princess. This marriage had political purposes to strengthen England's alliance with Cleves, a region in Germany, and Prussia in the face of threats from France and the Holy Roman Empire. According to Henry VIII, Anne was the right match for him. Anne was born in 1515, on September 22, or more likely, June 28. She was born in Dusseldorf, the second daughter of John III of the House of Lamarck and his wife Maria, Duchess of Jülichburg. Not waiting long, the artist Hans Holbein the Younger was sent to Turin to paint portraits of Anne and her sister Amalia, both of whom Henry considered as his potential fourth wives. Henry demanded his artist to be as accurate as possible, not to flatter the sisters. Henry also sent a personal agent to observe his prospective wife. From these efforts, Henry VIII received positive descriptions of Anne of Cleves from the agents, and he also received a stunning portrait of Anne. Anne was described by Henry VIII's chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, as a tall and slender figure, with decent beauty and a face that is very assured and firm. She had blonde hair and was said to have a beautiful face. All of this created a very impressive image of Anne of Cleves. Negotiations to arrange the marriage went smoothly in March 1539. The king agreed to pay a dowry of 100,000 florins to the bride's brother. Anne of Cleves arrived in England in December 1539, a month before her marriage to Henry VIII. Her arrival was highly anticipated by King Henry, who eagerly wanted to see her before their marriage. King Henry VIII, who was around 48 years old at the time, decided to disguise himself as a foreign guest without informing Anne or anyone else in the palace about his true identity. He wanted to approach Anne without the pressure of royalty or his status as the king. Their meeting took place at Richmond Palace, where Anne resided after arriving in England. Anne had no idea that the foreign guest invited was her actual future husband. Unfortunately, when Henry disguised himself and met Anne in person, he was greatly disappointed by her appearance. He felt that Anne did not match the description he had received in the portrait painted by Hans Holbein the Younger. He described Anne as physically unattractive and was deeply disappointed with her appearance, which differed from his expectations. Although it was a brief encounter with Anne of Cleves, Henry quickly realized that he did not want to continue his marriage to Anne. Henry urged Cromwell and the high-ranking officials to find a legal way to avoid the marriage. However, at this point, it was not possible without jeopardizing the important alliance with Germany. Although Henry was very apprehensive, they still got married on January 6, 1540, at the Royal Palace of Placentia in Greenwich, London, by Archbishop Thomas Cranmer. Their first night as husband and wife was not successful. Nevertheless, Anne was known to greatly admire her husband, often praising Henry when she spoke with her friends. But, as we all know, a marriage without love would not last long. After 6 months of their marriage, Anne was ordered to leave the court on June 24, and on July 6, she was informed of her husband's decision to reconsider the marriage. Statements from witnesses were taken from several palace officials and 2 doctors who attested to the king's disappointment with her appearance. Henry also commented to Thomas Heneage and Anthony Denny that he did not believe she was still a virgin. Shortly after, Anne was asked for her consent to annul the marriage. Cromwell, Henry's chief minister and the driving force behind the marriage, was arrested for treason. After realizing that their marriage had ended in unhappiness, Anne of Cleves decided to follow King Henry VIII's wishes to annul it. This was a wise move because she understood that she could not win the heart of a deeply disappointed Henry with her appearance. Their divorce was arranged in a relatively peaceful atmosphere, although at that time, divorce within the Catholic Church was still considered controversial. Anne received substantial compensation as part of their divorce agreement. This included substantial properties and income that would provide her with great financial comfort. After the divorce, Anne of Cleves remained well regarded in England. Henry VIII granted her high status as the beloved sister. Although she was no longer the king's wife, Anne continued to reside in England and became part of the royal family. She was respected as a close friend and confidant of King Henry VIII. Her elevated status provided her with protection from any potential threats or dangers that she might have faced if she were considered an enemy or a threat to the kingdom. Anne of Cleves was the only wife of King Henry VIII to survive her marriage to him. After Henry's death in 1547, Anne continued to live in England and led a peaceful life. The wealth she received as compensation from their divorce gave her significant financial freedom. She did not become involved in conspiracies or political issues during the subsequent reigns, which was a different fate from some of Henry's other wives, such as Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, who were executed. Anne passed away at Chelsea Old Manor on July 16, 1557. The likely cause of her death was cancer. She was buried in Westminster Abbey on August 3, in a location described as a somewhat difficult to find grave, opposite Edward the Confessor's shrine.